Reflections from Torch Trust, focusing on Christian faith and sight loss.
Hello and a warm welcome to the first reflection show of 2025. I'm your host, Marilyn Baker, and this is the show from Torch Trust that explores faith and disability in today's world. It's wonderful to be with you this morning. Yesterday marked 200 years since Braille was invented, so on today's show we'll be exploring the continued significance of Braille in the UK and abroad. Some listeners may recall that Compass Braille, an organisation providing Braille Bibles in multiple languages around the world, joined with Torch. Now they're working on a new and exciting project in English. Here's Reflections' new producer, Linn Davies, talking to Jake Kyle, who will tell us more about it.
Welcome to Reflections, Jake.
Hello, Lynn. It's great to be here with you.
So Compass Braille normally work with Braille Bibles in a variety of languages, but I understand that you've recently started working on an English language Bible project, which is the translation of the New International Version. Can you tell me how that came about?
Yes, there was a Braille version of the NIV, New International Version, that existed, produced by an American organisation called the Lutheran Braille Workers. It's an older version of the NIV. So in 2011, the NIV was revised, updated, and also the English Braille code was kind of revised to unified English Braille in the sort of 2015 type sort of period. So since then, there hasn't been a Braille version of the latest NIV Bible. So that's what we've been working on for the last few months. And really, it came about because of the merger of Compass Braille with Torch, because Torch already had permission from Biblica, who are the publishers, to produce the NIV in Braille, but they didn't have the specialized software needed to do the special layout that I mentioned earlier. So once we joined forces, we were able to work together in producing this. And also it's coinciding nicely with the celebration of 200 years of Braille.
So is this version going to be available in the UK as well as in other countries?
It's recently become available through the Torch shop. And we also know there is interest because we've worked together with the United Bible Societies on this. We know there is interest in some African countries for it. So we are expecting to be sending it to some African countries. I think Nigeria have expressed an interest in it, but I'm sure it will be used in many countries.
So how could somebody in the UK who might be interested in getting such a translation get their hands on it? And what is the approximate cost?
Well, first of all, it is available on the Torch Trust shop. So you'd go to the Torch Trust website and then there's a place where you can click on the shop. It's produced in 43 different volumes, so you can order one volume or a whole Bible or however many you want. And the cost of it depends. If you wanted to pay the actual production cost, you'd be looking at £500 for the whole Bible. But amazingly, when we mentioned it in one of the Torch newsletters recently, without appealing for money, people sent in gifts, and that has enabled us to be able to produce the whole Bible much cheaper. So you're looking at £64.50 for the whole Bible because of people have sent in gifts to enable us to subsidise the production, which is amazing.
In the UK, having a Braille Bible does ensure greater church inclusion and also can be a very good thing if somebody would want to read the Bible in their own free time. But my understanding is that in countries like, for example, Uganda and India, having a Braille Bible actually opens up for different opportunities and has a much bigger societal impact.
Yes. In some of the countries you've mentioned, people who are blind or visually impaired are often kept in the background or thought of as not having anything to contribute. And so having the ability to read, to learn, well, to become literate, they may become the only literate person in that family. And the Bible in Braille is used in this way. We've heard stories of actually in Mexico where having the Bible in Braille may be the only Braille someone has, and so it's used to learn the language, to learn spelling and and everything needed to become fully literate. And also, as as Christians, we believe that the Bible contains the most important message that we believe people need to know, and that's about God's love for them through Jesus Christ.
Someone who's part of Coventry Cathedral Choir is a friend of the show, Matthew Horspool. He sat down with Linn Davies to talk about how, amongst other things, Braille is vital to him in a choir setting.
I started learning Braille when I was about, probably about 2.5, 3, something like that. I've been blind since birth. And so Braille for me was the natural thing to learn when everybody else was learning to handwrite. The first thing I really remember very clearly in Braille was having my name on my coat peg in nursery school and very early infant school. And everybody else had a name label in print, and I had a name label in Braille.
How did you learn Braille at that age when you were 2.5, 3 years old?
My memories of it are fairly hazy. I think I had some very big things to do first, right? Like I learned to build things out of Duplo, and then I learned to build things out of Lego and thread beads on strings and things like that. And then gradually that turned into following lines of string, and then that turned into learning Braille. And I remember learning the letters in my name before I learned anything else so that I could label up my coat peg. And then once I'd learned that, then I started to learn all of the other letters that went around it. And it was done as a one-to-one thing. So certainly by the time I was in infant school, I was in a school for the blind anyway, which made the whole thing easier. But I was just pulled out of a lesson at a random time. I'd go off for half an hour with the deputy head, actually, who was also the Braille teacher. And I'd go to the deputy head's office and we'd have a Brailler and we'd have some reading books. And we would sit and we would do Braille. And I would do a bit of reading and a bit of writing on this Perkins Brailler, which is a bit like a Braille typewriter. And then, maybe the next lesson, then we would introduce the next lesson and the cycle would continue. And I think by the time I'd got to about 6 or 7, I'd learnt the whole alphabet and was starting to learn the contractions in the Braille system. My prevailing memory is being in my parish church choir around about 8 or 9 and reading hymn books in Braille. And they were fully contracted, single line spaced, double-sided hymn books, adult hymn books. And I was reading these hymn books and I was able to make sense of them.
You're also part of the Coventry Cathedral Choir. And I suppose for someone who might not be familiar with what it's like being a chorister, what does that entail? Because it's not just as simple as, for example, singing in a worship band. And I'm not trying to knock that at all, because that can be complicated as well. But being in a cathedral choir is quite different.
It is, and it's quite different actually to being in a parish church choir as well, because the commitment is huge. So actually the commitment in Coventry Cathedral Choir is quite light. We have to sing the Sunday Eucharist at 10:30 on a Sunday morning. We have to sing Evensong at 4:00 on Sunday afternoon. And that is actually all that we have to do on a regular basis in Coventry. Occasionally we do extra services, so there'll be extra services around Christmas and Easter. Actually, in Holy Week, which is the build-up to Easter, we have to do one service a day in the evening. We do the services of Compline on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Monday, Thursday, and Good Friday, obviously. Then we have a day off on Saturday, and then 2 services on Easter Day. So a huge level of commitment and a huge amount of repertoire that we don't get an enormous amount of time to practice. So we would have one Wednesday evening practice a week that lasts about an hour. And in that practice, we have to cover all of the music for Sunday morning and all of the music for Sunday evening. And the music for Sunday morning is probably about 20 minutes worth of music. There's a mass setting or a Eucharist setting and an anthem. And then in the evening, we have a psalm, a set of responses, a set of canticles, an introit, an anthem, and possibly a hymn. So, a lot of music, probably about 40, 45 minutes worth of music for the evening. So you've got to practice over an hour's worth of music in an hour. And you've got to also use that practice time to look ahead to all the special services as well. So you can't come into a cathedral practice and spend the time learning the notes. You have to know the notes and you have to know the shape of the music before you go in, or you have to be extremely good at sight reading. So you have to be able to pick up a piece of music, having never heard it before, and be able to glance down at it and read the notes and sing them accurately. And of course, you're going to make mistakes, but you want to keep the mistakes to a minimum, really. So my sight reading is pretty bad, but through Braille music and Braille in general, I am able to get hold of the repertoire in advance and study it before I go into the Wednesday practice. And sometimes that involves studying the notes through Braille music. Sometimes that involves getting a copy of the text, just the words, and listening to a recording and trying to match it up that way. It really depends on what's available. There isn't as much Braille music available as perhaps there should be, but so you pick whatever works for the occasion and for the piece of music. But I will be able to study it. I'll be able to use Braille, and then I'll be able to use Braille in the practice and in the service as an aid memoir. So I will generally produce my own Braille for Sunday services. I won't generally use the original Braille copy. And in my Braille copy, if there are things I need to be aware of, so let's say I always make a particular mistake, I can leave a note in my Braille copy that says, you must remember to start on a C here rather than an E, or the first 3 notes of this are C, E, G. And then once I know the first 3 notes are C, E, G, then that's enough of a memory jog to be able to go, oh, yes, okay, then I know that the rest of them is whatever that happens to be. And I can generally sing the rest from memory. But that is where Braille really comes into its own for me, because I can't imagine trying to do that with a screen reader. Number one, I would look very strange because I would have headphones on. And number two, because I would have headphones on to listen to the screen reader, I wouldn't be able to hear the people around me trying to sing. And you need to be able to hear that, not just in terms of being able to hear so you can stay in tune, but so you can stay in time. And also things like we all need to come on at the same time, start singing at the same time. We all need to come off and stop singing at the same time. If we're singing the word Christ, we want to make sure that all of the T's are at relatively the same time. Otherwise, you get an explosion of T's, and it's not very nice, especially in a big echoey building like a cathedral. It just gets lost. And so you need to be able to be really present in the moment. You need to be able to use your ears to hear, okay, the choir is breathing, which means they're about to come in, or, okay, we are at this speed and this note is supposed to last for 3 beats, so I need to come off at this time. And any sort of audible distraction, even if it is with headphones listening to a screen reader, you wouldn't be able to have that level of control, I don't think, and level of awareness and presence in the moment.
Let's be clear that this is not simple music. This is the very complex music where you really do have to count your beats, and the tenors and the altos and the sopranos might be coming in at different times and singing different melodies. And it's not really evident unless you've spent time practicing and listening to this. And I can really appreciate how doing all of this without Braille must be very difficult. Do you think you could have done this without knowing Braille?
Definitely not. Absolutely 100% not. I do other things other than singing choirs, perhaps not so much lately, but certainly when I was at university, I used to be in a little band and we used to sing pop songs and things like that. And at that time, I didn't have access to Braille. And I did, from time to time, I had headphones in because I also played a bit of keyboard. So I had headphones in to monitor the keyboard, and I could run my phone into the headphones, and I could, look at, get lyrics. If I was doing backing singing and stuff, I could play the keyboard with one hand and press the down arrow with the other hand to get the lyrics. And I did used to do that. And it did used to work because the music was simple enough that I could do it. And I've been in churches where I've not had access to Braille, just in the congregation, and used speech to sing along to the hymns. It's not a very nice experience, but it can be done, and I have done it successfully. But by the time you got up to like you say, the complexity of the music that we're singing in the cathedral, I definitely just wouldn't be able to do it without Braille.
How do you feel about the future of Braille?
I actually feel quite optimistic about the future of Braille. Something I didn't talk about earlier on in the interview is that Braille is as much a valuable writing tool as it is a reading tool. So a really, really exciting feature that came to the iPhone about 10 years ago is called Braille Screen Input. So the short version of this is that you can put your phone in landscape mode and you can swap out the built-in, on-screen QWERTY keyboard for an on-screen Braille keyboard, and then you can use Braille to just type on your iPhone like you normally would. And he would say, well, why not just use dictation? Well, if I want to send a message that's quite private and I'm in quite a public space, like on a bus or on a train, I might not want to dictate that message because I don't want the people around me on the bus and the train being able to hear my message. And I don't want to use the on-screen QWERTY keyboard because it's slow, but an on-screen Braille keyboard is extremely quick. I can probably Braille in Braille Screen Input at the same speed as a sighted person can type on the on-screen keyboard. So I think features like that and Braille technology in general, Braille displays, refreshable Braille displays that can connect to computers and provide Braille output from a computer screen, Braille printers, all of this sort of thing. I think the future of Braille is in a very, very good place.
Typing in Braille in noisy places is also quite useful because it doesn't require the accuracy of a QWERTY keyboard, which is great because everything is a lot more spaced out.
Oh, absolutely. I know people who go to restaurants and the restaurant ideally would have a Braille menu, but not all restaurants do. Or sometimes the menu's just been updated and the Braille copy hasn't arrived yet. So you'll be in a situation where you either need to get someone to read the menu to you, which a lot of people do, or you can access the menu online. So you've got a phone with you can access it online, but you just can't hear what your screen reader is saying because it's too noisy. And again, you don't want to put headphones in because you don't want to miss out on cues around you. Like if someone's coming up saying they want a drink, So in that case, yes, you can buy Braille displays now that are quite cheap. You can buy, I say cheap in Braille terms anyway. You can buy Braille displays for, say, £600 or so, which is much better than the £1,600 that they would have cost, 10 years ago. And you can quite often get grants for them and you can get them through, university or work or what have you. And so you just put a Braille display in your bag, a small Braille display in your bag, and then you could connect that to your phone and read the menu in Braille via the restaurant's website.
And if people are interested in either learning Braille or improving their Braille skills, are there some resources they can use, or is there somewhere they can go to do that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a bit disjointed at the moment. Different organizations in different parts of the country are doing different things, but a place that's really trying to change the landscape for Braille and to try and centralize some of this stuff and to try and provide a bit of consistency is an organization called the Braillists Foundation, which is a community-led organization, which I have a part in running. So perhaps a slight bias there. But I would look at the Braillists Foundation as a first port of call. I'd go to Braillists, BRAILLISTS.org, have a look at what we've got available, and then if further help is required, perhaps contact the Braillists, and then the Braillists will be able to point you in the direction of more local, more tailored resources for your specific situation.
And don't forget, if you're blind or partially sighted and would like to learn more about any of the services provided by Torch, including ordering that NIV Bible, our Torch Together holidays, our accessible books and resources, or our groups, our client services team would be very happy to speak with you. The number to call for information and for song requests is 01858 438 260. That's 01858 438 260. Or you can email info@torchtrust.org. You can also find us on social media. Just search for Torch Trust on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. I'm sorry to say we're all out of time for today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reflections. And until next week, from me, Marilyn and everyone on the Reflections team, goodbye and God bless.
You've been listening to Reflections from Torch Trust.